Hello and welcome to the Deepbluerenegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deepbluerenegade, and I would like to welcome you guys to episode 34. Today is Monday, March 17th, 2014, aka St. Patrick's Day. And I even get to wear a little bit of green today because my Bohas is done. Yay! I'm excited. I don't know. I am excited. And there's a little bit of green in it, so it's okay. So it works out. I finally finished the Bohas. Let's see, what happened? I finished it Thursday night, and I got to put it on at knitting, which was nice. I think the only trouble that I ended up running into at the very end was that it turned out I didn't have as much of this teal color to do tipping on the cuffs. So I had plenty of teal to tip the cuffs for, I had plenty of teal to tip the cuffs of my sleeves, but I ran out of teal for the cast-off edge of the sweater, which is here. Let me see, a little bit of teal. It's pretty subtle. So what I ended up needing to do, so on the cuffs I did one round just in the teal and then I bound off. And when I tried to do that for the bottom of the sweater, the one round and bind off, I was more than halfway done, but not too much more. So it tends to be that when I do a stretchy bind off, I believe that I do the Russian bind off, which is that you, instead of passing stitches over, what you do is you knit two, then knit them together, and then purl one or something like that, and purl them together, and so on and so forth. So some people would say that the edge doesn't look as nice when you do it that way, but I don't mind too much, and it gives it that stretch it needs for all those different places. And what is it? So that ended up working out just fine. I did do the same number of rows and twisted rib on the cuffs as I did on the bottom of the sweater, and so lengthwise it comes basically as far as my t-shirts normally go generally. Since I am in this college-going graduate student mode, I wear t-shirts all the time. So this means that when I put this sweater on, it entirely covers whatever t-shirt I'm wearing underneath, which is cool. So, it took about 5 weeks to knit, which is pretty impressive, considering that this is a sweater knit at a gauge of about 7 stitches per inch. And I was planning on blocking it this weekend, and instead I washed all of my pairs of socks, which is fine. I'm hoping that some of this color work ends up flattening out a little bit with blocking, but I'm not too worried about it. This pattern definitely takes more advantage of the texture than, or it's definitely a very textured pattern, so the fact that there is a lot of visual interest to this is fine. And I would say the big improvements over this sweater compared to my last Bohas was, one, my main color contrasts strongly with all of the colors in the yoke. And that was something that I had learned on the first one, where I chose my main color to be blue, but it didn't contrast strongly with any of the other colors inside, which is why I ended up doing the main color in the yoke is black, because I needed strong contrast. I needed a big value difference in order for things to really pop against things. The second thing was that I learned somewhere between when I knit the first Bohas and now how to appropriately add waist shaping. Excuse me. So it's the case where, what is it? So it's the case where on my first Bojas I had added waist shaping where I know whatever my waist starts to go in. But really the smart move with waist shaping is to spread it out. And basically, once you get past whatever, well, once I got past my breasts, then it was the case where I needed to take up fabric starting then. So that ended up working out fine. And then I started to increase again after I had gotten past that narrow spot. And then I ended up doing, I think, the same number increased again for my hips, which isn't necessarily what my measurements are, but it appears to fit just fine, so I'm not worried. And what is it? Now, one thing that I will admit is that there are a couple of interesting mistakes in this, which means that if I submitted it to, for example, the state fair, I probably wouldn't get third place. Which maybe I will, and maybe people don't really care. But there are some places where the details aren't just so. So I think I was more particular with my first Bojas in terms of making sure the details were just so. Some things that I still need to do in order to really finish this off is I need to weigh my sweater, weigh my scraps, and find a better way of sort of quantifying how much I have in scraps, because then that will be a more effective way of showing how much yarn I ended up using. And I am really thrilled to finally have a finished object. I've only shown you guys 2 so far this year, which might be a testament to how big my projects have been lately. And I was thinking as I was knitting on my other projects this week that there's been a certain consistency in terms of what I have been knitting, if that makes any sense. So it's the case where this was the fingering weight tight twist sock yarn. My walk on the moon is the lace weight tight twist lace yarn. And the Halalea is also that. Well, Halalea, I think, ends up coming in about in between the lace and the fingering in terms of, what is it? So it comes in weight-wise between Woolmeister lace and Woolmeister 100%. So they all feel very much so the same. And I'm not sure what I would do in order to change the textures that I'm working on right now. So it's just a case where I need to plow through and finish things. Whatever, I cast those projects aside, so now I pick them up back up. And today I'm drinking the Private Selection vanilla coffee. I wouldn't recommend it. What I hadn't realized is that on the bag it says artificial and natural flavors, and it is dominated by the unnatural taste of vanilla, if that makes any sense. So I should have picked a different type of coffee when I ended up going to the store. I was all out, which was sad. I think this was Wednesday. I was all out of coffee, and so I needed more. But I should have gotten my coffee from a different source, because this is just like that. Is there anything else about the Bojas? I don't think so. So, I'm going to probably launch into works in progress. And apparently they're all just sitting around the couch with me, which is fine. I ended up getting, for this, what is it? So I decided to record today because it seems like my week is going to be getting increasingly busy, and I figured it'd just be easier to get this out of the way. I don't think that I'm going to really make any significant progress between now and tomorrow, so I you know what, just go do it, have it be done. And what is it? So I probably should start with the Himalaya. I finally picked the Himalaya back up again. And I finally started to do, what is it? So I've been trying to evaluate the Himalaya to figure out how long I want to make it. And in order to really figure out how long to make it, I needed the structure of the sleeves in there. It's just the case where you can stretch to make it go wherever in the world you want, but that doesn't necessarily, because the sleeve holes are open, this meant that it really could go anyway, because you see this big gaping thing, I can stick my head in it, and you can't stick your head in the sleeve normally. So what I did, and so an interesting thing here is you can see the seam going along there. And interesting thing about this pattern is that the, or what is it? So the seams are offset. So some of that, or what is it? Some of that structure that you get that you normally have with a sweater, or when you're putting in a sleeve cap into a sweater, is not there. Like, it isn't that, you know, your halfway point is where the seam is, and you, so Mel of Single-Handed Knits had done a couple of tricks to make it so, that your seams were ending up in different places than places where it would be more obvious, which ends up making it a bit of a pain when you're trying to set in a sleeve. So this is the hole that I'm working on, and I managed to finish a sleeve this weekend. So I won't call it my best seaming job ever. So I've been knitting in between the small and medium size, and this of course is sort of crazy making. So the bohus, for example, the pattern was written in the 90s, the sleeves were ginormous. I took 2 inches out of the sleeves. And as you can tell, these are quite fitted. I like my sleeves fitted for whatever reason. And depending on the designer and who they're designing for, there is a very big difference between whatever 90s sleeves and maybe 20 years from now sleeves, or 20 years from then sleeves. So just the case where, so it is just a little bit crazy making. I'm pretty sure that the sleeve between the small and the medium is just, what is it? Too small for me. It's actually, what is it? Yeah, it's just too small. So that was a little bit annoying. So what I'm doing now is on the same needle that's holding the bottom of the Himalaya is I am knitting a medium sleeve. Well, the stitch just fell off, which isn't good. So what I have here is I have the bottom of the Himalaya, and then I have the sleeve that I'm working on right now, which is to the pattern a medium. And really the difference between the small and the medium isn't, strictly speaking, a huge one. I think it's about 2 stitches. But at this point, I'm a couple inches into the sleeve. It seemed to take a rather long time in order to get at the sleeve, and so I've done the armhole cast off, and I'm now in the shaping for the cap. And it really isn't a very long sleeve, and I ended up modding the pattern a little bit. What you're supposed to be doing is you're supposed to knit all the way to the cap and then go back and pick up and knit the length from like here on in the special copycat pattern, which is the same as the pattern on the bottom here. But I really wanted to know if the size was going to be right, because it's it'd be the case where Mel is a ballerina, so and I think she tends to skew towards a rather young style, which means that, of course, her sleeves fit me as how I would expect things to fit, as opposed to, say, for example, if I knit a Nancy Bush pattern. So because of that, hopefully this works. There's also maybe a little bit more in terms of increases there, or increases in the sleeve, so I'm hoping that this ends up working out. When I compared the size of the Himalaya sleeve to the flat size of the Bohas, it was smaller, so I should have realized at that point that it was just not going to work. Because looking at how it fits Mel in the pattern, like, it's not, whatever, skin tight. Which of course I am slacking off and doing something new here, because I am knitting a sweater that has negative ease. Like, I'm pretty comfortable with 0 ease. But negative ease is a little bit trickier. Just because, and I would also say I also have trouble with positive ease. Okay, but whatever. So because of that is the case where I'm like, ah. But I don't think the sleeve is supposed to have negative ease. Like, I think that just makes it look like it is the wrong size, which it probably is. So once I finish this new sleeve cap, I'll seam it in and figure out if it's the right size or not, and if it is the right size, then I'll rip out the other one and go back. I think I've committed myself to that at this point, so, which is fine. I want a sweater that fits and looks great, so we shall see how that goes. So, sleeve cap, coming along. It definitely seems, I'm hoping that this works better, because I really don't want to. Because of the fact that the normal guideposts for putting in a set-in sleeve were not present, I had to do a lot of basting, which basically meant that I took the leftovers, what is it? Let me pull this. I took the leftovers of the teal. Oh, there's a giant hair attached to this too. So I took the leftovers of the teal CC, whatever, these little bits. So I took whatever the leftovers of the teal and tied it down in several different places to make sure that the sleeve was oriented correctly. And I really can't put it on at this point since I have this one on here, because my size 3 needles are so busy right now. And I ended up breaking one of the Knit Picks ones on the Walk on the Moon project. So that's the story there, is that it's coming along. And this is, whenever we continue, I ended up posting a question in the Cal thread about what was going on. The Cal thread really fell asleep after the Ravelinic started, which I think a lot of people ended up dropping the Cal in order to finish these projects, so we shall see. I'm not too worried. I'm just slightly annoyed that I had to knit a different size of sleeve. And then the last project that I'm working on is the Walk on the Moon. The nice thing about the Walk on the Moon is that it is very easy. I've been knitting it in the dark. And at this point, let me check. I haven't checked the pattern in a little while, so let's see. Where am I at? I have just finished row, I just finished row 148, or wait, no, I'm starting row 148, which means that I'm nearly out of chart 3. So, almost there. So I'm, whatever, nearly at the top of chart 3, so that's not too bad. And my pattern is pretty dog-eared and beat up at this point, but that is the danger of living in my knitting bag. And so where I stand at this point on this is I have loose yarn all over the place. So blue on one side, red on the other. And so this is where I stand at this point. So I'm just getting ready to start the section, which looks like this here. And then from there, it's basically a ruffle. So I'm pretty close to being done. I'm not too many rows away from being finished. Trying to figure out the best way to show this. So it's coming along. It is very bright and very happy, and it doesn't require a lot of attention to knit, so that's pretty nice. I don't know what else to say about this. So I think it sort of depends on the situation. I think this tends to live in my bag more often just because it's more mindless. I ended up having a problem, I think it was Thursday, like I was knitting away on it and I reached the end of the swatches. So I had to put it down because I didn't end up bringing my skein of blue yarn, so I ended up spinning instead. And then the next day I totally forgot to bring the blue yarn again, but in that time I had packed my holiday yarn, which meant that I ended up getting a start on the sleeve Friday. So really, it didn't take, it felt like it took a lot of knitting time to knit that sleeve. Not sure, whatever. So it's coming along. I would say it just sort of depends on my mood whether or not I'll finish the Walk on the Moon before the Hallelujah. And that, because they're both still feel like they're pretty far from being done, I haven't thought too deeply on what my next project's going to be. I'm probably going to have to knit my husband lizard socks. He's quite keen on the lizard socks. Which I don't believe I can make it work at all for the anything old knit along. I would say that in terms of goals, I would really like to clear the needles for the everything old knit along, which I suppose is a pretty good thing. I will have a pretty big dent into that lace and fingering stash, considering, or for, I would really like to have a nice big dent after all of the purchases that I had made this month. And I even have one more coming. I don't know, that would have been a reason to have recorded later, because I'm pretty excited about what's coming. Let's just say that someone was destashing a very, very lovely skein for a reasonable price. It's sort of the case where, what is it? If you buy Woolmeise direct from Claudia in Germany, it's probably going to run you about $25 a skein. If you buy at the Loopy U, it's probably going to run you closer. I want to say it's at this point $32 or $33 a skein, which that's a lot more. to say the least, that's a lot more. So the going rate for Woolmisa skeins in D-Stash tends to more closely follow the Loopy U prices than it does the German prices. So it'll be something where people will sell it $30 shipped, which, I don't know, if you end up shipping by weight or something like that, or flat rate or priority, like, it's probably, it should be like $3, but it turns out that it's more like $5 if you do like priority mail or something like that. So that means that you end up making your money back if you buy from Claudia, and you don't make your money back if you buy from Sherry at the Loopy U. But the going rate for multi-skeins, like the ridiculous color combinations, super vivid, stuff like that, like people ask for, people will ask $35, and I just can't justify that. I bought, actually, this stuff is actually a clapper storch, and I bought that for $33 a skein, but this woman was offering it for $32, and it was a color that I wanted, so it took approximately 5 seconds to decide to buy Raku Raybogan? I don't know, it's the rainbow color. I don't know, like, some of the multi-combinations are sort of strange, not gonna lie. But it was pretty, to say the least. So, it's coming. It's probably going to arrive in the mail today, so I'll have to show it next week. I did get other Woolmisa in the mail, which sort of segues nicely into stash positions. And let me grab it. Oops, sorry there. So, I ended up getting 3 skeins of Feldmaus in Woolmisa DK. So this I ordered direct from Germany. And it is a mousy brown, which is interesting, because I thought that the mouse colors were all gray. So I think I'm actually going to put this up for trade, but I'm not sure if anyone wants to trade me for mousy brown. I don't know. It's just the case where I just finished a brown sweater. And what I think I really wanted to get, the colorway I really wanted to get, I believe was actually, was it Mouse Jung? And this is Feldmaus. So we're talking field mouse versus, I don't know what Jung means, but such is life. So I'm probably going to put this up for trade because I'm not thrilled with the color, which is what I get for clicking buy and being like, oh yeah, no, that should be one of the colors I'm looking for. It was not. So I think what I'm looking for is either a Mouse Jung or 26 FE or 47 AG or something like that. So one of those medium to light gray colors, and not brown. I don't know what I was thinking. If it turns out that this isn't, if my trade offer just doesn't end up going through, I have a couple ideas of places where I can post to be like, hey. So, whoops. It is lovely stuff. And so probably what's the interesting thing is that this is 234 yards per 100 grams, and these come in 200 gram skeins. So it really is pretty generous. So this would be the equivalent of buying 600 gram skeins. So I'm just a little bit annoyed that I had grabbed the wrong color. Which is entirely my fault. What was I thinking? So this is what I have. So I don't know if any of you guys end up having 3 match skeins of DK in your stash that are Woolmisa DK that you would like to trade for this brown color. I'm sure other people like brown more than I. But I'm probably going to put this up this week. I took photos of it. I haven't put forth my offer of for trade only. And maybe like, it probably isn't the first time that someone impulsively bought wool mica. I also was looking at the listings in trade, and there really wasn't anything up at the moment that was really striking my fancy. And it was the case for people who weren't actually trading either, it was just for sale. So that is the story there. And with that and stash positions, I guess I'm a little bit out of order today. Oh no. For some reason there was Velcro that was attached to my fiber. And if we know anything, it is that, what is it? That Velcro knitting don't mix. So this is my Fat Cat Knits BFL, which I ended up getting some spinning time on this week. For some reason it doesn't seem like that is particularly tight at the moment. For whatever reason, whenever I stuff it in my bag, it ends up breaking off, so so then whenever I start spinning again, I have to join fiber on, and I'm more than halfway done. So this is what we're looking at here, and hopefully that's decently in focus. Focus. For some reason, it seems to be focusing on me. Is it? So it is. Right now, I'm in a run of teals, and what is it? So it's going along. It was exciting to finally get to the end of one of my braid pieces. So definitely the ball is getting smaller, which is good. I'm not sure how many feet this particular one is going to be. Now I can see the end, so probably not too bad. No, still a decent amount. Yeah, so there's the end. So it's still several feet left to go before I get to the end of that. So what I'm probably going to do is times when I need to take a break from doing the unpleasant task I have to do all week. I'll probably spin and watch podcasts, which is fine. I ended up, that's part of the reason that I'm busy, is I have to do this unpleasant task, which is going to be rather time consuming, so it's better just to get it over with, but it is unpleasant enough that I'm probably going to have to take breaks, so I'll probably spin during those breaks, get through a color repeat, and that tends to be a pretty good chunk of time. We ended up getting a little bit further on the spinning wheel project, so it's the case where just trying to figure out some of the details and figuring out some of the spacing between things. So I'm using a 650cc bike wheel, and 650 cubic centimeters relates to how much air the tire around the wheel holds. And at the moment, we're just trying to figure out some general pieces of information, like how far the foot pedals should move and other such things. And maybe it turns out that we end up having to, what is it? We might have to tweak and adjust as we go, but the big things are down where there is connection, at least in design, between pedals and the wheel turning. It looks like we're going to probably be going for something where the axle is fixed and then the axle rests on bearings, as opposed to putting the connection for the rotation on the wheel itself, because it is, after all, a carbon fiber bike wheel. So we shall see where it goes. Once we have something maybe closer to a design, then it will make sense to go ahead and maybe show plans on the blog or something like that. But we shall see how it goes. But that was exciting to get a little bit further on that. And that a 700cc wheel, which tends to be the normal size for a road bike, a 650C tends to be for like a small woman's bike. I would say, I'm not, so we're talking people who are like 5'2" and a blow, like very small. I'm 5'4", so it's the case where I am 5'4" and I ride a 700cc bike. So the 650cc is quite bitty. But maybe in terms of total width, it's only maybe 2 or 3 inches shorter. So the diameter is about that much shorter. And there are still details that we need to work out. So right now the main thing was working out the details of getting the wheel rotating, and then the connection to the foot pedals and how much is acceptable travel for the foot pedals. It might turn out that my guesstimate was wrong, in which case we'll have to go back and tweak some things in order to make it work out. So that is the story there. What else? Nothing else is coming to mind right now. I think I've talked about everything I want to talk about, and it's a little bit longer than normal. Whatever. So I plan to record again. What is it? So I want to do 18 plus 7 is going to be the 25th. Yeah, that works out. So I'm planning to record again on March 25th. I'll be back in the grind of things, so that'll end up working out just fine. Or what is that? Oh, the other thing was that I didn't end up getting called for the knitting pipeline retreat, which meant that this weekend was without, or it was filled with knitting, but not knitting with other people. So hopefully those who got to go had a great time. We'll see. It seems unlikely at this point that I would be able to go next year, but who knows where in the world I end up. And what's the other thing? So one of my bridesmaids ended up getting engaged this week, so yay! And I'm going to be a bridesmaid for her. And so we were like texting back and forth, and it was and she's like, I need your calm, Molly, I need your calm. And then like it all starts with the knitting, and she's like, I sold all my knitting things, and then it was like, I have knitting things. So I ended up packaging up a couple of things for her, and then sending it along with the cowl. I don't know. So you guys remember the cowl that I made out of the cashmere possum silk? So that's going to her, along with some yarn and some knitting needles, so that she can be more calm. So it was also her birthday this past Saturday, so I figured that these things were well timed. She was supposed to come down and visit us sometime in March, but the timing ended up not working out. There's been so much snow, it's been sort of hard to plan travel and stuff like that. So that is winging her way to her. So it'd be the case where I'm like, if you need knitting, I can give it. Which I thought was whatever. So it'd be the case where like I have all these spray needles, I have this yarn, which I don't necessarily have plans for. It's pretty easy to send it off in the mail. And So recording the 25th, or Tuesday the 25th. And I hope you guys all have a lovely St. Patrick's Day. If my husband gets to whatever, or what is it? Or the joke is that my husband gets to eat long noodles on Chinese New Year, and I get to wear green on St. Patrick's Day. And this is how we celebrate our heritage. So I hope you guys all have a lovely week, and I'll talk to you again soon. So take care. Bye-bye.